Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and today we have our Fragment event calendar for Ishiyama the Immovable, the new fusion. So I'm going to be breaking it down for you. My initial thoughts looking at this are, it's actually a little bit worse than I was hoping for, which is not great because he is a pretty controversial fusion, I think it's fair to say. One thing I missed actually when I was looking at him the first time, is just me being dumb. I'm sure you guys pointed out in the comments, is he does actually place fear for 2 turns. I don't know. In my head, I had it in my head that it was a 1-turn fear and 2 turns for the other, but no, it is a 2-turn fear. So we saw that a few times in the showcase that people like Taris in Arena, we feared him for 2 turns, which is actually really good. We feared the Chimera Ram form for 2 turns, which was really good. That sort of thing. So that's definitely worth considering. Yeah, I forgot to mention, and just it's worth drawing attention to. But let's look at this. Why is it a bit worse, did I say? Well, this is why. So if we come over, we take our red. Forget about winning the leaderboards. Forget about this. You actually only have 110 fragments. 110 fragments. And the problem is then, if there's only 110 available, well, we've got Summon Rush gives 15, and then Champion Chase Tournament also gives 15. We can only skip 10, which means you need to do both of these, which is rough. Or, I mean, you have to grab at least 5. It'll probably break it down as 5 and 10 fragments, 2 different sets in the Champion Chase. And that would probably be my recommendation. You could also potentially do 5 fragments in Summon Rush. It's not certain that that's how it will break down, but that usually is how it is. It's usually 5 fragments, and then you spend usually twice as much, and you get an additional 10 for the full 15 from an event. So you can sort of pick your poison between Summon Rush or Champion Chase. If you got lots of shards of high value, then Summon Rush could be the way to go. Or Champion Chase is maybe a bit more beginner friendly because you can use Ancient Shards to do really any Champion Chase. Ancient Shards are okay. You can use Broadmaw fusions. You can use, any fragment legendaries that you've got saved up, anything like that. There's lots of ways to do Champion Chase. So that might be the way to go. So which one you skip the 10 fragments in depends on you. You also have, of course, the opportunity to do both of these and then skip 2 events for 5 fragments each, or potentially, for example, skip an entire champion training tournament. You could do that sort of stuff. Something as well that we don't have in here that we have had in more recent fusions is no Hero's Path during this. So yeah, how will we get a soul for him? They often run soul events. Possibly they won't run one. There might just not be one. There might be a Hero's Path or Deck of Fate or a champion training tournament, or there could be anything after this, a Titan event even. They could drop anything after this to give him a soul, but it doesn't seem to be in here. For example, if we look at our previous one, we had the Hero's Path that was part of the Lysanther Beastbane fusion, and that gave his soul. We don't have anything like that in here, which means no double dipping. So, yeah, he seems to be fairly unpopular. So, I don't know. They might just have his soul be for the winner of the Champion Chase or something sucky, which means you just ignore it. But I don't know. I don't know. But that is, again, a bit of a slight problem. Let's touch on a couple of easy ones. Obviously, let's just get the arena takedowns out of the way. You've got 2 of them. They're super easy. That's basically 10 free fragments right there. And at the very worst case, you should definitely do these just for mod fragments. So you can get mod in 10 years. That's always worth doing. We have 3 gear enhancements. Let's touch on those. Again, you're looking at usually, I don't know, have about 15 million silver saved up for each one to be safe. How do you save up that much? You just don't spend silver outside of gear enhancement events, and that's all there is to it, really. Yeah, you just need to be far enough in the game to get enough silver and be patient. Patience, patience, patience. That's how it goes. Right then. Then we come to the more complicated stuff. Again, this is, I think, going to be a big reason. Let's actually put this in red. Big reason for a lot of people to skip this. We have not 1, not 2, but 3 Dungeon Diver events, all giving 5 fragments. The fragments are fairly low, but it still might be a relatively substantial grind to do it. So 3 Dungeon Divers, 2 summon events that you have to participate in both of them. It's not a good combination, let's put it bluntly. Right then, how are we going to start? So with your energy, you're going to start with champion training for the first couple of days, and then finish it off as you will. And I'd probably be finishing it more towards the start. Dungeon Divers 1, I would not recommend much Dragon today. Of course, if you've got like a farm team for Dragon with one champion or something and food champs, you could do that. I'd say Dragon be focusing in more on that with Dungeon Divers 1. And actually, Ice Golem does overlap a little bit, about a day on Thursday of Dungeon Divers 1. I'd expect Dungeon Divers 1 finishes probably fairly early on Friday, so don't consider Friday an overlapping day. Ice Golem probably actually starts pretty early on Thursday. Thursday is the day that they overlap. So that's sort of where you'd be looking for that. Then a bit of a gap in the Ice Golem where there's not much happening. And then again on Saturday, it does overlap for about a day. Again, the overlap be mostly on Saturday, not on the Sunday. So just watch out for that. Then Dungeon Divers 2 has a little bit of a gap. We've got Spider covers it. And again, we've got a little bit of a gap for Spider, and then it kicks back in over here. So it kicks back in on Wednesday, but Tuesday is sort of a dead day. Champion Training Tournament. I would say then this is the day to do Champion Training, would be over here. But you can sort of do it whenever else you want, and whenever else you want, like so. And then Fire Night is simple enough. Get that in for Dungeon Divers 3, and then you've got like one day to finish it off at the end. And that's sort of how it's looking. Any other events overlapping? Well, yes, we have. This is a personal reward DVC right here. Exciting stuff. And there will be DVC over here as well, right after the fusion ends. My expectation, my guess, I wonder, would they drop... I'm really expecting Faction Wars soon. I don't know, like when they might drop it. What they might do is they might do Fusion into CVC and then be like, bam, it's big Faction War stuff and big hype new stuff coming after this. That'd be sort of... that looks the most likely to me as of right now. That's sort of my expectation. But this is likely not personal rewards, so it's a pretty bad time to summon him. You'd probably rather save him for personal rewards, CVC, or the next champion chase, or whatever. Yeah, honestly, looking at this, it looks pretty terrible. I do not like the layout of this. What would I do? For me, I'd actually probably be looking to skip 10 fragments from Champion Chase, personally. Let me put in X10. That's an option. Let me put that as option 1. Would be skip 10 fragments in Champion Chase. I personally would rather do Summon Rush. This is for me, though, because I've got plenty of shards that can do a Summon Rush. No problem. And I'd rather be skipping fragments at the end because you could easily get to the... let's say you skip 10 fragments in Summon Rush. You cannot skip any more. And let's say you forget to finish Dungeon Divers 2. You could get to the end to be short on fragments. Might even, if you're a spender, this can be a good strategy, by the way. If you spend money on the game for these fragment fusions, they will sell you fragments if you're close enough. They'll sell you maybe up to like 20 fragments or something. They're expensive, but you can buy them and it could actually save you some stress. But that's for spenders only. For free to play, obviously not an option. Not an option. Alternatively, you could do both of these and you could skip. I think Dungeon Divers 3 is not too bad. Dungeon Divers 1, Dungeon Divers 2 might be the one to skip because, you know, it's sort of at the start of the week. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. And you could save Spider for Dungeon Divers 3 and just do Champ Training. You'll get some of Dungeon Divers done with Champ Training. I don't know. Potentially skipping a couple of the Dungeon Divers could be the way to go, honestly. You know what? You could even just skip, like, Fire Night. You could skip Fire Night and you could skip Dungeon Divers 3. And you could just go hard for Dungeon Divers 2 and actually be pretty stress-free at that point. Like, have a fairly intense first week and then be like, all right, I'm going pretty hard with Champ Training and Spider to get Dungeon Divers 2 done. But then when that's done, I'm kind of chilling. I just have, you know, Classic Arena gear enhancement and do the Champion Chase at the end. I actually kind of like that myself. That's like a decent option. And again, because you're skipping stuff at the end, you know, great. Cool. It means that if you do mess up and you miss something, then you still have the option to finish these off. So I think that's a reasonable option as well, honestly. So yeah, that's where I'm leaning towards doing. For me, I'm actually leaning towards, let's say 1 and 2. I'm actually leaning towards doing the Summon Rush and then skipping either Dungeon Divers Fire Night or skipping Champion Chase at the end, sort of whichever one I feel more like, honestly. I kind of like the idea of skipping the energy stuff, and then I can just be like, yo, I've got like a whole week of Minotaur. Just, farm up some masteries or farm up some gear ascension, whatever it happens to be. Probably Minotaur, just farm up some masteries for some potentially like faction war hard stuff. I've got loads of champions I could work on that might be good. I don't know. I'm as I said in my video yesterday, I'm sort of at the point in the game where I'm like, kind of bored. I'm kind of just waiting for Faction Wars Hard and the Siege update, which I say Siege is still a few months away. I really hope the Faction Wars thing is hard. I was kind of hoping it would drop like last month, but then they did the Community Week stuff, and I was like, well, it's fine, but it's boring for me. I'm just waiting for the new stuff. So that's sort of where we're at. This is this. I really think that, to me, this looks bad. Honestly, this looks like a pain in the ass. You've got really annoying gaps, and when you're doing the dungeon tournaments, that's always tedious. Just that the stuff lines up a bit awkwardly. The fragments lines up a bit awkwardly. It looks a bit rough to me. I am going to do this because I do want him in case, for me, he's unlikely to be useful, but maybe he could be good for Faction Wars Hard, and that maybe is enough for me to do it. Because again, you saw my shards, you've seen my account. It's really not much of a stretch for an end game account to do a fusion. It's actually really quite easy. But for an earlier player, depends how much you're going to use him and your stockpiles of resources. It's an annoying fusion. So look, I leave it up to you. I do think that it could still definitely be worthwhile doing, but I can also see this being one that a lot of people will be looking to skip, I think. Because it doesn't seem to be too popular. And I think the schedule does seem pretty bad, but personally for me, I'm definitely doing it, and likely I might skip. I'll probably be skipping the energy stuff at the end, honestly. Is there any other option for stuff you could skip? Again, you could sort of skip anything. You could skip the champ training if you want. That can be very energy intensive. Skip one of the champ trainings, do everything else. Possibility to sort of spread your energy more broadly throughout the thing. I'll leave it up to you. There we go. That is Ishiyama the Immovable. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.